Got a good class today, y'all. Don't want to miss this one. Shalom, Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, Brakatham, Yahweh Shema Hatham, Hashem Yahweh Shai. This is the ISUPK. Started out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. We're under commanding General Yahana, and we're here to teach the truth of the Bible. The so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians are the real Israelites according to the scriptures. Today is our Hebrew class. We got some good content to be covering today. This is actually a prayer that we're going to be breaking down. The title of this class is called Battle Rap, Bars of the Ancients. You can't look no further than the book of Psalms to find a lot of ancient music. You understand? And the music topics, the things that are talked about in the book of Psalm is very important, very vital to understanding our culture. Now, of course, us coming back to the Lashawan Qadash, that brings a whole nother dimension to us learning about how we created music and what our subject matter was, the things that we talked about. In the Lashawan Qadash class, what I like to do is I like to give you new vocabulary words and new phrases and things to learn so that we can build on our understanding of the ancient Hebrew so that we can continue to take our culture back. The thing about this particular class, though, is that not only is this more vocabulary, but this is actually a prayer, because this is a song to the Lord, much like how when we read, the book of Psalm during our Sabbath service or during the high holy days. This is yet another prayer that we could add to our repertoire for you personally so that you can read on your own, so you can recite it on your own. Very important bars that are being spit right here. And so what we'll be breaking down today is, again, Psalm chapter 140. We got 3 verses on the board here today that we're going to cover. It's quite a bit of information, and I want to try to put as much content within a short amount of time, but also not overwhelm y'all as the audience. The first thing that you have to understand when you're looking at these classes and the way that I have it formatted is that we're actually going over entire precepts. And the reason that I do it like that is not to overwhelm you, but to give you an idea on how sentence structures come together, how root words can be affected when put into a sentence in different forms of speech. You understand? Different ways to build the sentences and build the precepts so that it all comes together. Because it starts with vocabulary, but there's different rules that are put into play when we're putting these sentences together. And seeing more examples of it really starts to help us remember a lot more of the language, because we're using it in chunks. We're using it in its natural habitat in the middle of speech or reciting certain things, past, present, and future tense. And so we're seeing examples of that. Again, this is going to be a prayer that you should definitely write this down. This is not one of the prayers that we read during the Sabbath service. This is a new prayer, not adding to what we have during the high holy days. This is a personal prayer. And once you start seeing some of the lyrics being said, which you could read ahead of time, you could easily just pull your King James Bible out, go to Psalm chapter 140, verses 1 through 3. You could read what it is that we're about to translate. What you see on the board is the ancient Hebrew, which I always like to refer to the people. On this side of the screen, you have the modern Hebrew and the ancient Hebrew. And the ancient Hebrew is the Hebrew that we typically go by because it is the oldest form. It is the original form. It is the form without vowels. It is the form with less rules. It is closer to our culture than we would think, because in our language, when we make music, we're always trying to shorten our sentences, shortening our speech, shortening our words to get the most amount of information across without having to expound on it so much. It is not until later years that languages started to add filler words and try to be more fancy or to sound more romantic, like French or Spanish. That's not what Hebrew is. Hebrew is much more war ready, because in times of war, the most important thing is information. And the best way to get information out is to have it sent out quickly and effectively. And so our language is built around that premise. The Lashawan Qadash is an ancient form of speech. And this is battle rap. This is basically these are the kind of bars that are prayed to the Most High in times of war. And this is exactly what we're dealing with today, because when we go into this and break this down word for word, you're going to see just how relatable this is to 2025. Though this had been written thousands of years ago, that doesn't change the fact that it's just as relevant today as it was back then, especially for so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians who are at war every day, spiritually and physically. You understand? Here in America, there's so many distractions that can keep us pulled away from our culture. This is the time for us to recalibrate and come back to our culture. And what better way to do that than to start with our language? So what you see on the board right here is what you should definitely be writing down on a piece of paper. And this is going to be probably a multiple part class because this chapter is about 12 or 13 verses in length. And we're only going to be able to cover 3 verses today. Okay, we want to break down these 3 verses completely. So get your spiral notebook, get your your folder with your loose leaf paper or what have you, and go ahead and start writing this down and create some space so that you can continue this class at a later date whenever we continue this topic of Psalm chapter 140. Because I would like for my students to have the entire prayer. This is a prayer about war. This is a song about war. And this is definitely one that would be beneficial to have in your arsenal so that when you pray to the Most High, you can come to a scripture like this and you'll have something direct with what you're dealing with every single weekend when we go out to camp and things like that. So absolutely nothing wrong with adding more prayers to your repertoire, more ancient Hebrew to your modern day vocabulary that you speak, you know what I'm saying, in our language amongst each other when we talk to each other. And so we're going to jump right into it today without no further ado. So Psalm chapter 140 and verse 1 starts with La Ma Natazak. La Ma Natazak. This is La Ma Natazak, which is to the chief musician. Okay. To the chief musician. The root word here is natazak, which means chief musician, singer, or supervisor. You understand? Natazak. This is the root word right here. I'm going to bracket it so you can see where the root word falls. Musician, chief musician. This means basically the head honcho of the group. You understand? I'm trying to clean this up a little. Chief musician. Again, this is verse 1. Lama natazak. Natazak is a word that means musician. Okay? Musician. A psalm. Ma zamawar. That's what you see right here. Ma zamawar. The root word here, what's the whole phrase? Ma zamawar, which means poem set to notes or instrumental music. So what this is saying is a psalm. This is going to be one of our vocabulary words today. You understand? Let's go ahead and put that right here. Ma za mawar. Ma za mawar. I'm going to write it in the English transliteration. This means song. It also means, what I say, a poem set to notes. What does that mean? A poem set to notes. Well, it goes right along with this. Instrumental music. Instrumental. Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans have always been attuned to music as a part of our culture when it comes to getting messages across, when it comes to expression, when it comes to flexing your mind. Language is a part of that. Some brothers might not have any particular musical talent, but they may be good at art forms of other types, drawing, painting. Sometimes you can consider construction a form of art, because there's order to it, there's organization, there's planning, there's cunning, there's geography, there's all types of things that are involved. When it comes to music, music is structured different as well. I myself am a musician and have been since the age of 12, I've been a woodwind player of specifically jazz, and the instrument of choice for me was the saxophone. But I wasn't real big on writing lyrics and things like that until a later time where I felt like I finally had things to say. But amongst the children of Israel, you have all types of psalms. Okay, psalms can be instrumentals, psalms can be words that are set to notes or poems set to notes, which means that you have lyrics that are within a structure of a musical instrumental. You understand? That's the first and foremost thing you have to understand about music. If you're a musician, you understand the 4 bar. Very rarely will you use a 3 bar or a 5 bar. Those are not something that we typically deal with. We don't typically see that in music today. Doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't exist, but it's very rare that you see that. Most of the time when you look at when you listen to a song, it's going by beats of 4, 4, 8, 6, 12, 16, 32, 64. So it's always usually structured like that. Then you normally have a couple of bars that are set aside for what they call a hook or what they call a chorus. Okay. And so we understand music. We know music. Brothers and sisters listen to music all day, every day. You understand? So we know chief musician, which means the lead singer or the main operator or supervisor of the music, is Natazak. Natazak. Nowadays, you can consider this to be what would be called a master of ceremonies or the MC, as those that like to pronounce it in the 90s. Ain't no sucker MCs in the UPK, I'm telling you right now, because there's a lot of talent, a lot of brothers that are fighting for that #1 spot because we're competitive like that. And so, as far as being the chief musician, that's a title. That's a hell of a title to have in a nation of very talented musicians. You understand what I'm saying? So, a chief musician, a chief is like saying it's loosely translated to the word general. When you see the word general in the Bible, it also translates to the word chief. So, this is a very high title that's being said for this particular person. Okay, to the chief musician, a psalm la dawada. This, I don't even need the translator to see this. This says to David. You understand? Because we all know Dawadah by now means David. Those of you that know, because of course the actual signet of the Israelites is his initials. Okay, it's 2 doors put together, 2 doors put together to make a shield. So it's saying of David. And the whole book of Psalms has plenty of this. Okay. Now, again, writing this down is one thing, but we want to continue to practice how to say it, how to read it. The more that we see these characters, the more it's going to be easier to remember. La ma natazak. La ma natazak. Maza mawar. Mazamawar. Maza mawar. Mazamawar. La dawada. La dawada. To the chief musician, a psalm of David. This is not, honestly, this right here tells you what? That this is like how do I say, a submission of a letter or a poem or a what do you call it, a basically a song, a poem that is being sent up to King David. So it's saying to the chief musician, a psalm of David. So this is saying that this has been sent in for approval as bars that can be representative of our culture and of ultimately being implemented in the Bible. So not just every bar that Israel spit or wrote down went into this. It had to be the best of the best. It had to have purpose. It had to have so much. You understand? So that's why it says La Dawada, because now it's telling you that the general of the supervisor of the music is sending this up to be approved by the king. Ha la Tazani. Ha la Tazania. Ha la Tazania. Ha la Tazania means deliver me. Deliver me. The root word here is kalataza. This part right here. Kalatazah. Now we're saying deliver me, which is saying kalatazan ya. Kalatazan ya. How do we know that? Well, can't really speak on that nah right there, but I know for sure that when you add ya as the possessive adjective at the end, you see the ya right here, it means my or me. So when you add ya at the end of something, you're either saying something as in terms of it being your deliverance, right? If the word right here is kalatazah, then we add a ya at the end, kalatazanya is saying deliver me. So this is the actual beginning. This is when the actual prayer starts. This is the introduction, and then this is where it starts. So it's to the chief musician of Psalm of David, deliver me. This is the actual beginning of the bar right here. Kalatazanya, Yahweh. Obviously, we're going to go straight to the source, right? When it comes to us praying to the Lord, we usually mention his name because it is his name, Yahweh, in the ancient Hebrew. We're going to respect it by writing it in all caps and writing it in its original form. Remember, there's no J's in Hebrew. There's no V's. There's none of that. It's just Yahweh. Deliver me, Yahweh. Kalatazanya, Yahweh. Okay? Y'all following so far? I'm going to check the chat real quick. Y'all give me a second. Those of you that are tuning in, make sure to type your attendance in the chat, which is, of course, saying the salute, whether you're male or female, whichever version it is for you. And then, of course, your name and the city that you're attending the class from. We want to make sure to keep an eye on the attendance numbers, okay, whether it be online or physically in class. Take the time while I'm stepping away to try to get as much of this written on paper as you can, so I'm not blocking the screen the whole time. You understand? Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. It's a good time for you to learn some more prayers. You understand? Deliver me, Yahweh. Save me. This is what he's saying. Protect me. This is what, and again, this is a prayer that you can recite when you pray to the Lord. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be in front of everybody and things like that. This doesn't have to be a scripture. This doesn't have to be a prayer that we read every weekend. We do the Sabbath service or the high holy days, like what we got coming up on Sunday. For those of you that don't know, IHPK San Antonio, we do have a high holy day this Sunday at sundown at 7 p.m. that we will be celebrating the ancient holiday of the nation of Israel, the memorial of the blowing of trumpets. So for those of you that are interested, check our previous post to see the address. Look for the post that has the flyer for the event, and you'll see our address and everything like that. You can come on through Sunday evening so you could dine with us and see more of this language being recited and us keeping our culture and our heritage. So far, we got La Ma Natazat, Ma Zamawar, La Dawada, Kala Tazanya, Yahweh, Ma Adam. Ma Adam. Now, here's an interesting one. It's saying Ma, meaning from. This is interesting because we see that right here. A preposition is a character that becomes at the beginning of the phrase. Remember, Hebrews read from right to left. I'm writing it from left to right in English so you can understand it, what's being translated. But the root word here is Adam. Ma Adam means from men. So the root word here is Adam. Now we know that word because that sounds just like the name Adam, right? From the book of Genesis. The name Adam quite literally means man, okay? So Ma Adam means from men. So the prayer or the bars, this battle rap excerpt is saying, deliver me, Yahweh, from men. But what kind of men? Ra'ai. Ra'ai means evil. You understand? Ra'ai means evil. So how does this prayer start? It starts off, Ka la tazanya, Yahweh, ma Adam, Ra'ai. Now again, think Yoda. Think of the way Yoda talks in Star Wars, and you'll understand Hebrew a little bit better because Yoda talks backwards. So instead of saying it in Hebrew, Ra'ai Ma'adam, we're saying Ma'adam Ra'ai because the way Hebrew is pronounced is backwards from English. So we're saying men from men evil or from men of evil. It's implied that the of would be there in the English translation. So it's saying from men of evil. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of saying evil men, you know what I mean? So just keep that in mind because you're going to see that a lot in the Hebrew sentence structure. You understand? So just try to keep an eye on that. You'll notice that. All right. Ma'ayash. 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 This actually is saying the same thing as here, ma'adam. But ma'ayash is just another vocabulary word that means man as well. Okay. And the root word here, ayash, means man. Okay. But the ma in the beginning, same thing, from men. Technically, if you were to write this down, or if you were to be reciting these like in everyday speech, you would be able to say ma'adam, ra'ai, and then ma'adam again. Because ayash and adam are interchangeable, but they mean the same thing. It means men or man. You understand? That's adam and ayash. Those are vocabulary words. If you want to put them in your vocabulary, go ahead and do so. But make sure you leave a room for the rest of the chapter. That way we don't, so that you don't break it apart too much. Because I would rather y'all be able to have the whole scripture written down so that you can recite it whenever you want to. Next phrase, the next word here is chamasyam. Chamasyam. This is an interesting one because this is actually a very relevant word right here in today's time. From men, chamasyam. What does the word chamas mean? Well, I'll give you a hint. If you've seen Fox News within the past month or the past year, if you've seen, if you've been on Twitter and have been paying attention to what's going on in the Middle East, you always hear this word right here, Hamas. Hamas is actually ancient Hebrew for violent. Violent. So yes, though the people of Hamas, which are an organization that is deeply rooted in Yemen and in Lebanon and possibly even in Iraq, it's just another I guess you could say sect of ISIS or even the Taliban, where they are, wherever the heck they come from, they can all be considered this word right here. And it's not just the Arabs; it's everybody that's always starting shit around the planet. Hamas, of course, the difference here is the ha, right? Because when you think about it in English, it's Hamas, Hamas, but the Lashawan Qadash says Hamas, Hamas. Now, again, because we're talking about more than one, ma'ayash, Hamas yam. Hamas, my bad. Hamas yam. When we add a yam or a yan or a waf at the end of a phrase on the left side, it's plural. So violent is actually a verb that is being translated to mean a plural version of it, meaning the violence is not something that's a one-time incident. People that are Hamas, you know what's crazy? The unfortunate event that happened last week where a man got unalived in the middle of a conference was in the middle of his speech. He was taken out by somebody who you could call Hamas. Not literally in that organization, but somebody that was violent. You understand? Hamas. That's ancient Hebrew. Before it was ever Arabic, it was Hebrew. That's a beautiful thing about Hebrew. It is the derivative language of battle rap. It is the ancient language of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. It is the language that most languages on earth have gotten influence from. Okay. Thana Taza Ranya. Let's see what that says. Thana Taza Ranya is the next phrase. It's saying, Thana Taza Ranya. Let me get the root word. Na Tazar. Na Tazar is the root word. Matazar. Now, because we have these extra characters added here, that's just because it's being brought to a sentence structure. So we'll see that here in a minute. But the word natazar means preserve. So what he's saying right here is preserve me. Preserve me. Preserve is the root word. Natazar. Me means the Yah right here. Now, where do we see the sentence structure similar? Let's think about this real quick. Deliver me, Yahweh, from men of evil, from men of violence, preserve me, or from violent men, preserve me. Okay, so what is he saying? And how does this sentence structure be adjusted? Kala tazanya, tha na tazaranya. Notice that the na is added in a sentence that is referring to a future tense, because the prayer is referring to future tense. It's not talking about present tense nor past tense. So those are technicalities in the language that we have to keep in mind so that we can see how it compares with other sentences that are talking in future tense so that we can understand that. Now, where does it actually get implemented? Look at the whole entire sentence. These are being implemented in verbs, okay? So the na is being added at the end of the root word, which then changes the root word from being pronounced by itself to being added to that before adding the ya. I hope y'all can understand that. The root word here is deliver, which is kalataza. Kalataza. The root word here in preserve is natazar. Natazar. What's being added here, because this is a verb that is being future tense, it's saying what? It's adding the na right here. So instead of it saying kalataza, it's kalatazan. Instead of this being natazar, it's natazaran. That's the only rule that's being changed. Now, me personally, if you want to pronounce the root word and then just add a ya at the end, I'm perfectly okay with that, because as a Hebrew Israelite, we're always trying to shorten languages. But this is, keep in mind, translated directly from a modern Hebrew text, which is the Interlinear Bible. And if you look at it, it's the modern Hebrew. So some of their rules are implemented even in this translation. So understand that some of the rules being involved, we might be a little bit lenient with how they're pronounced. Just keep that in mind. Give me 1 second. I make sure that the screen's still focused. Most High Christ. I see you checked in, Mike. Most High Christ. Definitely try to write down these scriptures. This is a prayer. These are battle rap prayers right here. So we've gotten all the way to the end of verse 1. We're going to go ahead and do a recap real quick. Let's go ahead and read it in Hebrew and then translate it back to English. Okay? This is Psalm chapter 140 and verse 1 in the Hebrew. La ma natazach. Ma da mawar. La dawada. Ka la tazanya. Yahweh. Ma Adam, Ra'ai, Ma Ayash, Kamasyam, Tha na Tazar, Salakia, Tha na Tazaranya, Tha na Tazaranya. If you have any trouble remembering what these characters sound like, take a look over here and you'll see the whole alphabet. Abagada Hawaza, Khataya, Kala manasa ipa, tazakwa rashanta. You see how I have it written right here? So you can always refer to it. There is the Syrian right next to it, but since I do my classes in the ancient Hebrew, don't worry too much about this until Sabbath service, where we may actually use that. Focus on these characters here, and then look right here to see where it lines up, if you have any trouble pronouncing any of them. And again, you can always rewatch the class. You can always rewind. And it's important to write these down so that it gives you a better chance to have it there so you can look at it more than once. So we're going to read it one more time. La ma na tazach. Ma zamawar, la dawada, khala tazanya, Yahweh, ma Adam, Ra'ai, ma Ayash, Amasyam, Thana Tazaranya. What we said was to the chief musician, a psalm of David. And this is the beginning of it. Deliver me, Yahweh, from evil men, from violent men, and preserve me. Okay. So that would be verse 1. This is a prayer asking for the Most High to protect you from evil men. This is a great prayer to have on your own terms when you're being persecuted, when you're being hunted, when you're being oppressed by people that are above you, that want to put their knee on your neck, people that want to kill you, the people that speak evil of you, people that wrongly accuse you. You understand? This is a perfect prayer for that, and it's going to go even further in depth. So let's go ahead and jump straight into verse 2. And verse 2 starts off, who, now this is a continuation of verse 1. So when it says ashar, ashar means who. Okay. Ashar means who. Let me write that down. Who. Okay. So this is tying into this one. So when it's talking about the violent and evil men that you want the Most High to preserve you from, it's going to go into further detail about these folk. So it's saying ashar kashabwa. Kashabwa. The root word here is kashab. Kashab means to plan. Okay. To plan. To plan evil things. Evil things. You could also just say evils because you're saying Ra'ai. Remember, Ra'ai is evil. Ra'ai wath makes it plural. So when it translates to evil things or evils, that perfectly makes sense because here's the root word, and we're just adding wath to the end of that phrase to make it mean multiple evils. Okay. And that's exactly the people that are above us that look at Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans. They plan evil things against us. They plan, I would forget about it. From just the cops waiting for you to speed past them on the highway to them wanting to be, what do you call it? To racially profiling and police brutality, whether it be that or even so in the extreme of times of war, where there are people that are premeditating ideas on how to purge Blacks and Hispanics from the land, just like how it was hundreds of years ago when this land was first conquered. It's almost like as if there's been a spiritual grudge held by those that have been in power for so long that now that their kingdom is starting to falter bit by bit, whether their government is weakening or whether their image is being brought low across the whole world, first thing they want to do is start taking things out of us. So the first thing they start doing is they start planning evil things against us. No different than like what happened in the time of Egypt, where the pharaohs and his chiefs and his higher ups, his cabinet, came together and said, we need to deal wisely with this children of Israel, lest they outnumber us and overtake us. That's no different than what's happening today about the scare of the invasion of America by people that are coming from other countries. When really what it comes down to is our people just are fruitful and multiply very quickly. Because we do a lot of loving and we do a whole lot of gathering together and building and coming together and really building our communities. So they be hating on us. You know what I'm saying? That's really what it comes down to. Ashar ha shtabwa ra'aywath. Balab. Now here's the thing. Balab means in their hearts. So when it's saying lab, lab means heart. Okay? Heart. And then ba means in. If you look up here, ba is a preposition. So when you put it at the pre part of the root word, it means in or with. To plan evil things in heart. Okay? In their heart, technically, is what it's saying. Okay? So let's get that straight. There you go. They plan these things in their heart. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. This is how you know the Bible is so accurate, because the first thing they do is they have these intentions in their mind, in their heart, in their intentions. It's not always something that's for everybody to notice. But every time something happens, like with the unfortunate event that happened last week, you had people that were calling in the black colleges. You had people that were making posts online saying, "Oh, you ready? You want this war? We're ready for it." They didn't even know who the shooter was until the next day. They didn't even know that the culprit was one of their own people, and they were already, because they planned evil things in their heart, they're just ready to pounce on Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans because they assume that we're a part of that problem, a part of that plot against them. It's almost like it's like seeing paranoia in real time, because they get so antsy about the fact that they might be losing their groove over the earth, their power over the earth. And so their natural, I guess, the way that they were made is because a lot of these folks are actually deriving from nations of people who would be considered evil, who would be considered oppressive by nature. It is in their nature to have these things in their minds. So when you start seeing it come to the surface because of events, it's really just an excuse for them to let out what's been in their minds and their hearts all this time. And so what this prayer again is doing is it's praying to the Most High to protect you from those that have those evil intentions towards you, though they smile in your face all this time to want to take your place, right? So that's really what it comes down to, is they've been trying to take the place of blacks and Hispanics since the time that Esau gave his birthright to Jacob, and he resented doing that. He regretted doing that. And so it's been in their heart all this time to try to replace us one way or another. We're praying to the Most High that we are not removed from them, whether it be any of the people that are coming against us, not just one particular nation, but any evil that comes against us. This is a prayer that covers all bases. This is Bars of the Ancients, okay, which is relevant in 2025 as it was whatever 200, 300 BC, whenever this was written. It's like this might have been 700 BC, between 700 to 750 BC. That was around the time of King Solomon and King David. So we're talking about almost 3,000 years ago at this point, over 2,700 years ago. And these bars are still hitting. Most High Christ. So now we're going on here. It says, call. Let's get that. Continually. Good night. This ain't no one-time thing. They meditate on that hatred towards the children of Israel, the real children of Israel. Okay, the real children of Israel. That's important. Yawam. Yawam also means continually. So Kal and Yawam also mean the same thing. Let me just get that real quick. Or daily. Daily. That's why news is news. Because whenever there's a bias in a specific network, I don't care if it's CNN, Fox, I don't care if it's One America, OAN, it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's, hell, it could be Russia Today, it could be other sources on the other side of the planet. There's always a daily dose of what they say, propaganda towards stirring this, because it's a collective mindset that they keep organized through that propaganda, because it's a continual push to continue to program the minds of their nation to be that way innately towards us. It's not a secret anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's not a secret when they say remove slavery from the history books and don't teach that in schools. Why would you do that? Because the only way that you're going to try to prevent something from repeating itself is to know about the past. But if they're not able to know about the past or know about our history or anything like that, then we can't move forward as a people. We can't improve as a nation. Black and Hispanics can't get out of the projects, can't get out of the mindset of thinking that they have to be a drug dealer or to sell their bodies off to make ends meet. We have to understand just how the people that are above us that have been in confederacy against the children of Israel, Psalm chapter 83, another battle rap prayer, you understand? That we have to actually come out of all that to understand what we're supposed to do so that we don't get affected by their planning against us. So again, understanding that we are at war spiritually is one of the main things. And that's why this prayer is so heavy, because it brings attention to that. No different than how hip hop is supposed to be created to bring attention to the problems within our communities and to raise attention to the people that are trying to oppress us. That's why hip hop in the 90s had at least a little bit of something going for it, because it was more about, it's almost hard to even say it nowadays without it sounding trivial, but consciousness amongst our people was really just another way of saying awareness amongst our people. And so this prayer is about bringing awareness to the fact that we are being plotted against. That's real hip hop. If you're not rapping about that, if you're rapping about killing your own brother or taking your brother's woman, that's not battle rap. Those are not bars that align with the scriptures. Real bars that align with the scriptures are bringing attention to the war that we are in and asking the Most High to protect us. That's what this is showing me. I hope that y'all brothers and sisters see that too, because this is heavy bars that are being spit by the chief musician who collected these poems together for King David to approve, to be put in the book so that we can read this thousands of years later and keep that same mentality of war that we're in even to this day. Yah Gawarwa. Yah Gawarwa. They gathered together. Yah Gawarwa. They gathered together. Just like how Psalm chapter 83 says, they are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes. So it's not just talking about one nation of people. This could easily refer to a lot of different entities, a lot of different governments, a lot of different nations that have that same mentality of wanting to oppress our people. Okay. Doesn't matter if they're Chinese or Japanese or European or Arabic. It doesn't matter, because if they're not Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, this song very well applies to all of them. Okay. So Yah Gawarwa, which means they gather together. The root word here is gawar. Gawar, which means to assemble or gather. Okay. To inhabit, to remain, or to sojourn. In this particular case, gather is a good translation. Malakamawas. Malakamawas. The root word here is lakama. Lakama, which means battle, for war. That works too. For battle or war. Was, which makes this plural. Ma means for. Lakama means battle. Lakamawas means multiple battles. So there's no reason. It's not a coincidence that you can go to academy at 8 o'clock in the morning before they're open, and there's a whole line of Edomites that are waiting for it to open up the day after your boy Kirk got unalived, because they're constantly preparing for multiple battles, because they're like, oh, I guess I don't have enough ammo in my closet, so let me go and get everything off the shelf at academy with everything that's left on my credit card. That's how they think. I've seen it. That's what they did when Biden got elected president. The first thing that I seen was a whole line of Edomites outside, because Biden was supposedly against the Second Amendment. So they're always, what's the word, prepping. They're always a bit paranoid, even though they could sit there for years and none of that stuff ever gets used. But they're always gathering together continually for battle against our people. Okay. So that's the end of verse 2. Let's go ahead and read verse 2, and then we're going to translate it. Then we'll read it in the whole thing that we have up until this point. So this is Psalm chapter 140 and verse 2. Ashar, Chashabwa, Raiwas, Balab, Kal, Yawam, okay, Ya Gawarwa, Malakamawas, Malakamawas. So again, he's saying, who plan evil things in their heart continually, daily, they gather together for battles or for wars. Start at verse 1. Let's go ahead and read everything we have up until now. La manataza ma zamawar la dawada kalatazanya Yahweh ma adam ra'ai ma ayash kamasyam ta natazaranya ashar kashabwa ra'aiwath balab kal yawam ya gawarwa malachamawath. Okay, so again, what he's saying is, to the chief musician, a psalm of David: deliver me, Yahweh, from evil men, from men of violence preserve me, who plan evil things in their heart continually, daily, they gather together for battles. Okay, so this is particularly talking about how the children of Israel need to seek protection from the Most High to be prevented from being destroyed in times of trouble. There very well could be wars on the streets of America. You have National Guard that's being sent to Chicago right now, which is most definitely a hot zone. They call it Chirac. Why do they call Chicago Chirac? Because there's guns being popped off in Chirac every single night. Well, they're sending the National Guard in there to try to do what? To try to maintain order. But you best believe they're not going to be hesitant to pull the trigger. And it's very important for Blacks and Hispanics to understand what I'm about to say. If you're in the United States military and you get sent as a National Guardsman to an American city where a lot of so-called Black and Hispanics are dwelling at, if you were ordered to open fire on our own people and you do so, you have the mark of the beast, because you're doing the bidding of the beast, especially if our own people are being used to fulfill these plans that have been planned against us. You have to understand how much we are in this spiritual battle. And we overcome this spiritual battle by being spiritual. This isn't about you picking up a gun and trying to go and fight against anybody. You have every right to protect yourself as an American citizen. That's something that you've been given. Probably something that they may try to take away at some point. I don't know. But what I will say is, what's actually going to protect you is the Most High. That's why this is such a crucial prayer to write down in your notes, because this is extra credit. Extra credit shows the Most High how into this culture you are and how much you're into the truth and keeping and maintaining your good standing with the Lord, and actually writing down things like this in the prayers, because we do the Sabbath service. We do the high holy days. We keep the law, statute, commandments of the Most High. Why not have a prayer so specific about what's going on right now that you can recite this one as well? This is such a heavy thing to be able to do. I wouldn't be surprised if someday this was implemented across the whole school as a prayer that we speak all the time, because this is very much so relevant with what's happening right now, and especially when we go to camp. You understand? That we want the Most High to protect us from those who have ill intentions towards us. Though we are not a violent organization, we don't do anything like that. We do community work. We work in charity. Though our words and our speech be of fire and brimstone, that understand that we speak in a way that just shows our acknowledgement of the spiritual warfare that we are in. That's what you got to understand. That's something that the world does not understand about the ICPK, how in tune with the music we are. And this is the music of the ancients. These are the bars of the ancients that were put in the Bible to remind us exactly what time it is. Okay? That warfare never quite changed completely. It just was dragged on so much that you forgot that you were at war. So don't be distracted by everything around you. We're going to finish off today with the third verse. Let's go ahead and get it ready. Let's get this translated. Hold on, let me make sure the screen's up. I bumped into the camera. Let me check. Most High Christ. Let's go ahead and finish this off strong here. So we got Psalm chapter 140 and verse 3. They sharpen their tongues like a serpent. Ooh. Shananwa. Shananwa. They sharpen. The root word here is shanan, which means sharpen. Lashawanam. Lashawanam. Their tongues. They sharpen their tongues. The root word here is lashawan. Lashawan, which means holy tongue. So we know that word, lashawan, lashawanam, meaning instead of saying lashawan yum, it's just saying lashawanam. It's adding the ma at the end, so it's letting you know. It's actually literally talking about tongues like their actual physical tongue. This is a tongue that is more of a talking about their language or speech. So when we say tongues in the Hebrew, the way it translates is the way that they move their tongue that creates the language that they speak. So it's a little bit different context. Well, Lashawanam means tongues, meaning literally their tongues. Okay, not so much their language, but what they're talking about. Kamawa is the next one. It says Kamawa is like Kamawa, or in comparison, right? We'll just leave like Nachash. Nachash means serpent. Nachash. I don't know if any brother in the school is named after this, but I wouldn't assume it's a name that most brothers would want to name any of their children or anything like that. So I don't know if Nachash is one that we see often, but perhaps it could be used in a different context than the way it's being used here, which is of course a negative thing, right? Nakash. Now we have Hamath. Hamath, which means the poison. The poison. That is Hamath. This part right here. The poison. Ikash Wab. Ikashwab of asps. I'm gonna break this down a little more. Of viper. Asp means coil, and viper is, of course, another type of serpent, a poisonous serpent. So the root word here is it's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. But a viper coils up right before it's about to strike. So it's like it says like the serpent of poison of asps, meaning the poison of a viper that's gonna strike. Okay. So that's like what it is that the way that the heathen that dislike our people, the way they prepare and gather and sharpen their tongues, they sharpen their tongues, meaning what? That they push out that agenda to the masses like a poison. They're constantly degrading our people in their media, in their social media, in their social circles, behind closed doors, in their dinner table conversations, in their congressional hearings, anything that starts to put any kind of negative light on the people that that are being prayed to be delivered from. So be advised about just how precise these scriptures are and how it relates to our people, because not only are they violent against us, not only have they planned things behind closed doors and things in their heart against us, they sharpen their tongues like a poisonous serpent or like a viper waiting to strike, because that's when you know they're making their move, because they're constantly putting it out there that we are the problem, we are the plague on the earth. And then once we're dehumanized to a certain extent, then they can change laws. Then they can make slick moves behind closed doors or change legislation that prepares for us to not have the same type of rights that even they have. You understand? Like, even so much right now, you have ICE agents that are technically unconstitutionally running people out of the country, though they're not being given due process of law, because the Constitution says that all people in America are supposed to be given due process of law, whether it be citizens or not. Well, some of those things are possibly being ignored or expedited in an unfair way, that they're not actually taking the full extent that they're supposed to do things the right way. I've seen videos of 5-year-olds representing themselves in immigration courts. 5-year-olds crying on the stand, trying to defend themselves, and then being, of course, quickly shipped off to wherever without any adults. It's crazy. It's the kind of stuff that's going on, but of course the media doesn't tell us about that, because their tongues are being sharpened to put a different idea out there, to make sure that the propaganda is in their favor and against us, dehumanizing us, making it in preparation for more of those evils to be moved forward against us. And so these prayers here that we're covering within these verses that we're going to be going over through this entire chapter in this new series that I'm doing for this particular chapter in Psalm, it's really going to hone in on a lot of the stuff that's being happened to us even recently. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let's finish up here. So the kaf is under. Under, like physically under. Okay. Then it says shapath yamawa, their lips. The root word here is shapah. Shapah, their lips. Like a serpent of poison like a serpent, the poison of vipers under their lips. Salah. Salah means it's kind of like a sentence, like a way to end the sentence. It's almost like instead of adding a period to the end of a sentence, you could say salah, and it just basically means suspension or pause. So salah is just salah. I'll just write it in Hebrew. Forget it. Salah. Salah is like a word that's used to complete your thought. Okay. Whereas when you saw the verse right here where it says who plan evil things, this was a continuation of this. Okay. And then verse 3 was a continuation of the first two verses. But then by the time you get to the end of the third verse, Salah is being used to take a breath. It's like I said, it's like a punctuation almost. So let's go ahead and read what we got today in the Hebrew, and we'll read it in English, and then we'll pick up back on this in the next class where we'll try to do another 3 verses in the next class. So again, starting from the top, La ma natazak, ma zamawar, la dawada, khala tazanya, Yahweh, ma adam, ra'ai, ma ayash, kamasyam, Thana Tazarnawa, Slakia, Thana Tazaranya, Ashar, Kashabwa, Ra'aiwath, Balab, Kal, Yawam, Ya Gawarwa, Ma Lakamawath, Shananwa, Lashawanan, Kamawa, Nakash, Kamath, Aikashwab, Thapath, Shapath Yamawa, Salah. Again, what we said in the English is, to the chief musician, a psalm of David. Deliver me, Yahweh, from evil men, from violent men. Preserve me, who plan evil things in their heart continually, daily. They gather together for battle. They sharpen their tongues like a serpent, the poison of vipers under their lips. Salah. You understand what kind of prayer this is? This isn't all sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops like the Bible is in the Christian church. This is the Bible for what it actually is. It's not being sugar coated, it's not being withheld from you. It's so real that it applies directly to your life right now. This is what the Bible is created for, to bring comfort in your mind, to give you ammunition spiritually to fight against your daily struggle. And you best believe that there are evil men out there that do plot evil things against you, Israel. And so this is Battle Rap Bars of the Ancients, part one. We'll be going over part two, most likely, Lord willing, next Friday. And we'll continue to expound on our vocabulary and to put the rest of this prayer together so that we can have it as one of our prayers in our notes. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the class here. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Of course, definitely check us out tomorrow. We're going to be going live 11 a.m. for the Sabbath service. And then we'll be going to camp shortly after. So we'll be getting it cracking right like that. And so with that, Shalom, Yahweh, Hashem, Yahushua, Brakatham to all the brothers. Yahweh Shema, Alatan, Bahashem, Yahushua to all the sisters. Shalom.